Hello out there, internet misfits and skeptics everywhere. My name is Mark Reid, and welcome to the Reading Room. And today, in the Upside Down, I have with me the one, the only, the incorrigible Big Bad Mama. How you doing, Mama?
Hi, Mark. This is great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure.
I
My
mean,
pleasure.
I'm so happy.
Oh, that's great. Well, I mean, I hope you feel welcome. I hope you feel at home. You
Oh,
have
yeah.
hung
You're my
out in my
friend,
chat.
Mark, so I feel instantly
Well,
welcome.
yeah. I was trying to think before we started, like, where did we meet? And I think it was on Amy Newman's. I think it was Amy Newman's chat and sort of the antics that we both got up to on Amy Newman's show, which is a fantastic show, by the way. But
Yes.
yeah, I think you were one of the original people that I sort of encouraged me to create this channel in the first place. So I want to say thank you as well to sort of
Cool.
peer pressure. Thank you for your peer
Well, thank
pressure.
you.
That was
You've helped me. You've given me ideas,
oh
Remember the
good.
Star Wars scene that you told me to incorporate into a Hoven video? This is a den of
Right.
thieves, or what was
Right. Yeah, yeah.
it?
Yeah. A more vile den of
Yeah.
you'll never find. Yeah. Yeah, no, that was great. And you do amazing little shorts that I absolutely love to see come across my feed, which are just hilarious most of the time.
Cool,
But
cool.
I wanted to know sort of um well, how you are and how you've been traveling and how you what do you think about sort of the job you've done on YouTube? What do you think about the YouTube experience that you're sort of having?
Um, what was the first question was, yeah,
How
I'm
you
doing
are.
good. I'm doing good. Um,
Okay.
I'm, I'm enjoying YouTube, though I get, kind of burnt out on it at times. I think like you, and you just have to
Yeah.
take a break at times when
Mhm.
mentally it's draining you, or sometimes it even makes you depressed. Me,
Mm.
I'm speaking for myself, but
Yeah.
some of the people that I deal with they just don't like me, and so which is fine.
Do
I
they
don't.
even know you?
They don't even know me. They know my stance, and
Mm.
and my criticism of Ken Hovind, and making fun of him, I guess, which I do.
Yeah.
I try to make my videos. I think I try to make a combination of funny but also disturbing at the same time,
Yeah.
because I think he's a disturbing individual, and his cult is a disturbing phenomena. And I think that it has a real negative effect on people, and so I like to expose that.
I've heard a lot of people who have come from his circle, either relate that they've been sort of very disillusioned by him or people that are disturbing themselves that sort of hang around in his circle. You know, looking at you, Stephen Boland, um, sort of why Kent Hovind specifically though? I mean, there are a lot of disturbing people out there, especially disturbing creationists who I would say take advantage of their ministry in various different ways. But
Yeah.
why Hovind specifically? What drew you
I
towards that?
I think he's kind of a microcosm of the things that I don't like about creationism, as opposed to Ken Ham, who takes kind of a little bit more moderate stance on things. But Ken
Right.
Hovind's extreme in both his pseudoscience with
Mhm.
his Hovind theories, and that's what kind of started me criticizing him back right after he got out of prison in 2016, was when I kind of started to troll him. And then I took a long
Yeah.
break until about 2020. But that's what kind of attracted me to his channel, was the pseudoscience, and trying to debunk that but basically just as
Mm.
a troll. And then the more I learned and the more I listened, the doomsday message came back again and again in almost every show. And I think that is just a horrible thing to put on people, especially the people that are in your compound. But going out to the world, to the people that are part of his cult that exist outside of Dinosaur Adventureland, I think he just sends a horrible message that why are you going to want to try anything to help save the planet if it's going to end in, we're supposedly in the tribulation, according to Hovind. So I just hate that message. And those were the two things before I learned just kind of what a horrible person he is individually in terms of the the child molester friends that he has and how he treats workers and just his attitude towards people in general. I think he's got a real illness ultimately. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No, go for it. I wonder sort of, and I really want to know sort of what, because there's a lot of people out there who do preach the doomsday message kind of thing. And you mentioned Ken Ham, and even though I think Ken Ham might be more dangerous, because while Kent Hovind says a lot of ridiculous stuff, I don't think he has, he's not lobbying government or,
Yeah.
sponsoring things or trying to get things built off the government dollar to try and implement a sort of a fascist sort of, Christian totalitarian state, whereas people
Right.
like Ken Ham and all of those are. Ken Hovind's mostly considered as a joke by not only atheists, but most of the sort of hardline Christians like Ken Ham and the people there, for good reason. So I'm not sure if I would agree that he's more dangerous.
I just think Ken Hovind is more interesting and stranger than Ken Ham, and I think that's one of the reasons it keeps my attention. Am I still coming in, Mark, by the way?
Yeah, you're still fine. You're still absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so it's kind of, a little bit for selfish reasons. I just think he's more interesting. And I think I'd go, I do touch on like Steven Anderson and some of the offshoots of Ken Hovind's, like the Matt Powell, the Proverbs guys, some of these smaller ministries. But I totally agree with you. They do not have the influence that a Ken Ham has.
Right. So is it like a lot of the time I feel like it's the absurdity of him that is sort of one of the things. Like it's just like if you had to do a parody of a Ken Ham or one of these hardline people, or the hardcore fundamentalists, I think if you wanted to do a parody, it would end up something similar to
Hovind.
Kent Hovind, yeah,
for
it's
sure.
Sort of the grift is obvious, the selfishness is extreme. He's like a parody of his own class of people. But what originally made you go, I want to focus on this person? Like what you said, 2016, like when he came out of prison, was it that entire story kind of thing that he went into prison, or was it more revelations after he got out of prison? What was it that sort of, like, what motivates you to focus on this particular individual above all else? What drew you to that?
It started, I don't think I even knew that he was in prison, but I was on YouTube and he started his YouTube channel, I believe when he was married to Mary Toko.
Yes,
And
that was his
she's
first marriage?
second wife.
Okay, so who was the first?
Joe was his first wife.
Oh, yes. Okay, yep.
So he had divorced her in prison and he was with Mary Toko, and she had shows on his channel as well. And I don't really want to get into it because I don't want to get your channel in trouble or anything about what she was espousing, but anti-medical treatments and different things. And, she was really out there.
Harmful things, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'd get in trouble if you just mentioned what she
just
said.
Anti-vax. She made anti-vax videos.
No, that's fair. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's disgusting, really.
It was, and so I keyed in on that, and then for some reason, I was working at the time, and so I just left that whole sphere. And then for some reason in 2020, I came back and I started to troll Hoven's channel again. And I created all sorts of characters and they would get blocked and banned. And, Big Bad Mama was one character, but Ken Hoven keyed in on this character and, he'd be sexist and his followers were,
Mm.
just insulting me left and right. But for some reason, he kept showing my comments and, getting a little angry at my comments, but still showing them on his show. And so at some point, I had enough to put a video together. And that
Mm.
was the first video I put out on YouTube under this character. I have other channels with some other videos that nobody knows about in the creation atheist sphere, but for this channel, that was the first video that I put out.
So
And then, yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, then Atheist Junior reposted my video on his channel, and that gave me a big boost. And so that was really awesome. And I love AJ. He's a friend of mine, and I really appreciate how he has encouraged channels, including your own, I think, Mark.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But
AJ's
just
been
a great
supporter of
person,
mine. Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah,
guy's
absolutely.
hilarious,
Mhm.
big heart, and I just love the guy. So
Yeah.
that's how
And
I started. And then that, because of that, my video actually got some hits. It got
mm,
couple thousand hits, and I just decided it's kind of fun. I'm just going to keep making videos. And so I just started making videos about Matt Powell and Kent Hovind mainly. And once in a while I'll go and I'll do a video of me going to some waterfall or something, but
yeah.
which I like to do, and
Oh,
people
yeah,
like those
you live near
videos as
some
well. So
yeah, you live near some beautiful country. Just quickly, Robin gives two of the most patient people I know and informed. Thank you so much, Robin. 9
thanks,
months.
Robin. I love you.
It's incredible. Yeah, Robin's just a diamond in the community. She is wonderful. So thank you so much. But so this was just so what I want to ask is what you do troll, do you consider it trolling? Would others consider it trolling? What I have seen of you, and I want to push back on this idea, because what I have seen of you, you don't actually try to convince people that you believe anything different than what you actually believe. Okay, so
Yeah,
I like, to me, trolling is when you go in and you say, oh, well, I believe that Santa Claus is real, kind of thing, and you troll, kind of thing.
it,
Perhaps flaming. Do you know what flaming is? Okay, so flaming is when you intentionally go and try and start an argument.
Yeah,
Right. So you say something
I definitely do that.
contentious.
Yeah.
Right. But I think trolling is lying about what you believe, or what the truth is, or sort of lying about, things in order to convince people that they are otherwise. To me,
Right.
that's trolling.
And I'm using it wrong, because I don't troll. I basically just give my honest opinion always when I'm on this, using this channel. If I create another avatar and create a character, then I'll create a character that has totally different opinions, and I've created creationist characters, and that's
Yeah.
that's trolling.
Yes, that is trolling. So do
But
they espouse creationist positions, kind of
yes,
thing?
but as
Okay.
a joke, people know I'm joking when I'm doing it for the most part.
It's hard to tell. I mean, people have trolled me in the past because I have trouble telling the difference between sort of sarcasm and, I think Poe's law is a very, very pertinent point at this stage. Have you ever heard of Poe's law?
No.
Oh, so Poe's law basically says that, without any obvious indicator of sarcasm, it's impossible to distinguish somebody who is a creationist from somebody doing a parody, because the views of creationists can be so outlandish that you can never, like, sometimes it's absolutely impossible to tell.
Yeah, I don't, whenever and this is like, 3 or 4 times that I've done this, but,
Mm.
um, my character will be so ridiculous that you'll instantly know it's satire. I mean,
Well, that's the point. You can't always tell
yeah.
because
Well, that's okay.
sometimes, sometimes you're sure that someone has to be troll. They cannot possibly believe that the Bible is God or Bigfoot is Jesus, for instance. And you're wrong. They actually believe that stuff. It's sort of this when you get down the deep end of the pool, I would not be surprised by almost anything these days if someone actually believed it. Or
That's true. That's
yeah,
true. I mean,
so
look at
I'm not.
especially in this country, I mean, look at the state of what we're going through, and the beliefs of these people, this
Right.
conspiracies, I mean, isn't creationism is I consider one of the larger conspiracies, and especially in the United States. I think it's a conspiracy theory. I guess that could be argued, but, uh,
Mhm.
flat Earth, that's not as common as creationism, but it's kind of a subgenre of creationism.
Yeah, I don't think
Do you think that's a
I don't
conspiracy theory or no?
well, I don't think it's as prevalent as people think. I think the community is very, very loud, but I don't think it's as widespread as people sort of as the flat earthers make it out to be. They kind of say,
Right.
"Hey, there's more people every day, and people are joining it." I don't think that's the case. I think it's sort of very, very, very niche, and they're just very, very loud about it. They're very, very active in the community. It's kind of um yeah, it's kind of I don't I think it's kind of like the NRA, the gun proponents. There's not that many of them. There's not, you know, a majority of them. It's just they're incredibly loud.
But don't you think, creationism in the United States probably is up to maybe 20% of the population, I would imagine.
Um,
15 to 20? What would you say?
creationism or young Earth
Young Earth
creationism.
creationism.
I don't think that's up to 20%. I'd say it's more about 15 or so. Let me see. Let's
It's a
get some
lot.
statistics on this. Stats in the US. Uh, It's a lot. A
Well,
2017 Gallup creationism survey found that 38% of adults in the United States were inclined to the view that God created humans in their present form at one time within the last 10,000 years. That's horrific. That's 2017. So I'm not sure
it's
if
probably gone
things have
down a little
changed.
bit
Probably, yes.
because
But
of
that
the,
is
the
horrifying.
nuns or what they call it, the
Yeah.
nuns. That's growing in the United States, but what did you think? 38%?
38%. Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people, and those people
Yes.
vote as a block,
Yes,
and they
they do.
vote extreme right wing, and so and they're very, as you said about the flat earthers, they're very loud. They get involved at every level of politics, and it's a real, formidable, opponent to have in this
Yeah.
country.
No, that is way, way worse than I thought it was. Yeah,
It's
that
disturbing.
is horrifying. It is disturbing, especially since, those are levels that you'd expect from sort of a developing country, not a first world nation kind of thing. Like that's not even creationism, that is young earth creationism, which is
Right?
awful. Yeah,
Less than 10,000 years.
right. Oof.
Yeah. That's even higher than what I thought it was.
Mm.
I would have said that 38% were, Christian, but I guess that number is just quite a bit higher. You know, how many people identify as Christian? It must be 50% or more.
So, and you do have somebody sort of in as the Speaker of the House in the USA being um, a young
Right.
Earth creationist. The crazy thing is that over in Australia, if you're a young Earth, that's the end of your political career. Basically, if you're a young Earth creationist, you don't have a political career at that point. The people that may be young Earth creationists would keep it under wraps. They would not sort of broadcast that in the slightest.
Well, there was a Australian politician that, gosh, was he on a show with Richard Dawkins? And Richard
Yes.
Dawkins called him out, and he admitted, that he was a young Earth creationist. I always wondered, was he knocked out of politics at that point? Or
Okay, so that was Tony Abbott, I believe. I think it was Tony Abbott, and he was thrown out by his own party
wow,
as prime minister. Yeah, he was given the boot. The sort of nickname for him in the thing was the Mad Monk. Was the sort of nickname for him. So the people don't. We generally don't accept sort of that kind of attitude in politics, because don't forget the largest denomination over here is probably Catholic. So I mean,
yeah.
they don't have the evangelical. The evangelicals are definitely in the minority over here. Catholics are a lot more reasonable when it comes to science and
Oh, yeah, yeah. They even
things
accept
like
the
that.
Big Bang and evolution to a certain extent.
Yeah. Oh well, they do because the Pope has come out in support of evolution. So
Right. I mean, you have extreme Catholics that are,
yeah.
what I consider fundamentalist Catholics,
Mhm.
that might be creationists, but yeah, for the most part, no, they actually accept science.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, here it's we have a lot of people in power that are young
mm,
Earth creationists, and
no, that's terrifying.
you really can't get into a position of power by being an atheist, certainly in this country. I mean, you
Mhm.
almost have to be a Christian.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
and
there's some areas where, some Muslim leaders in the House of
yeah,
Representatives, but
yeah, sure.
always an Abrahamic religious person. So it's yeah, that's going to change at some point, but it's just a matter of us surviving that change. We've got this upcoming election, and it's really disturbing the things that are being, bless you, uh, the things
Thank
that
you.
are being proposed by
Mhm.
Trump and his gang of criminals. Trump is a criminal. And this Project 2025, I don't know, have you done shows on this or are you familiar with this?
I have downloaded the entire document.
Okay.
I I started to read. It's actually really depressing to read. It's a depressing read. And so I don't want to. Um, I do want to do a show on it, but I would like to take a good read through it, and I haven't had time slash the will to go and do so yet. To be honest with you, it's also not my country, so
Yeah.
I don't. I have less of a stake in it than everybody else. If people want to see it, I definitely will go through it and sort of give my interpretation of it. I do understand a little bit about politics. I understand less so about US politics, but I still have a pretty good sort of hold on it. I think that um, it's very strange because the rhetoric that is projected by a lot of them is where the atheists are going to get rid of religion, and there isn't a single atheist I know that has proposed that.
Right.
I don't know anybody that is saying, "Hey, we would ban religion," but it's still put out there like it is absolutely true. I
Scare
don't
tactic.
understand it.
It's a scare
Yeah,
tactic. And even Ken Hovind has said, well, I mean, he's the extreme. He said that Christians will be beheaded by atheists. And so this is
yeah,
just one of the scare tactics that they use, of course, to rattle their base. Um, and there's a lot of things in this Project 2025 that are about, it's all about consolidating executive power under Donald Trump. Uh, the whole thing was written for that, promoting conservative and right-wing policies, reshaping the federal government, getting rid of the EPA or downsizing the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, getting rid of the Department of Education. But ultimately, I think one of the things is reducing corporate taxes from
Yes.
21% to 18%, where
Mhm.
Trump's tax plan already went from 35 to 21%. It was
Yeah.
his one big accomplishment, not accomplishment, it was a bad thing, but that was the
Mhm.
big thing that he did when he was president. And this just continues that trend. And you would need a 3/5 vote threshold to pass any legislation that increased corporate income tax, which provides what I read, a wall of protection for corporations.
Well, I think in general, what they're trying to do is trying to get businesses back into America. Like, for instance, Google, its headquarters is in Ireland, right? For good reason, because the island's like a tax haven for
Yeah,
corporations. But no matter how much they reduce it, even if they reduce it to where they're looking at, they're not going to get those corporations back. They've got too much of an incentive to be in Ireland or Bahamas or wherever the hell they're putting it. It's not going to change things, right? All it's going to do is just give more money to these corporations, basically, in America. That's all it's going to do. Um,
it'll
the
make the
whole
rich
like,
richer, like practically
well,
every other president has done.
they're setting up the rhetoric as just trickle down again,
Yeah,
yet again, which has
which
never
doesn't
worked in the
work.
past.
Yeah,
Yeah. It hasn't worked at any time, at any point, and they keep on suggesting it. And I don't think it's because they want it to trickle down. I think that they know it's going to stop at the shareholders, and they're fine with that. That's where they want it to stop.
right,
Um,
right.
Greater
They don't
corporate
believe in
profit.
trickle down. I mean, they know trickle
No,
down is a sham.
no.
That's just propaganda they put forward to get votes. And so far,
Mhm.
they've had the conservatives in there pretty much controlled the conservative party, especially probably since like the Reagan era and uh, well, longer than that. I mean, I'd have to say longer than that with Eisenhower, but um, yeah, I just think that they have pitted Republican against Democrat because Democrats usually aren't much better than the Republicans. They are better. There's at least social safety nets that are put in under Democrats, but they're still representing the same corporate powers and lobbyists and that kind of thing for the most part, except for probably the progressive end of the party.
Mm. Um, yeah, I think though the um, the um, the sort of way that we got out of it, and Australia helped pioneer this strategy, was that we had a thing where we just gave everybody $1,000 in the country when we're on the verge of a recession, and that kickstarted us out of it. That was with the collapse of the housing market in the US. It sent
Yeah,
everybody into a tailspin,
right.
and we just gave money to everybody. That's it. And that kicked our economy into gear because people spent it before they even had it. That's the thing. Instead of like keeping it because you're like, well, I've got $1,000 coming, I can spend $1,000. Let's go out and get a whatever. And so it kicked the economy into kicked up, and that's the same thing that they did coming out of the pandemic. And so it shows that if you want a healthy economy, you don't cut taxes and give money for it to trickle down. You give it to ordinary people, and
Yeah.
they spend it making the economy and the productivity of the economy accelerate. So I think that that's sort of been established, but they're still trying to sell this trickle down, and it's what amazes me is Trump's ability to get people to vote against their best interests,
Yeah.
like his ability to sway people to follow him to their ultimate disaster. Like, for instance, um, you know, they poll Republicans all the time about, do you want Obamacare to be shut down? And you can tell he wants Obamacare taken away. Like,
Right.
that's what he tried to do on multiple occasions. But he convinces people to vote for him, even though he's going to take it away from them, and they don't want that.
So I think there were a couple things that why he was able to do that. One was he
Okay.
was a celebrity for years on The Apprentice and Celebrity Apprentice, and
Mhm.
so he brainwashed people. I don't know what a better word, into believing that he was a fiscally responsible, good businessman. And which, if you look at his record, I mean, he was given what, 400 million by his father just starting out, and then he had casinos go bankrupt. So he isn't that great of a businessman, but he convinced people that he was, and he also convinced people that he was a uh, outsider, a Washington outsider,
Mhm.
and but he was still giving money to both parties, so he wasn't really an outsider, but he convinced people that he was gonna go in and drain the swamp. And
Yes.
then I think the third thing that, helped get him into people's minds was the birther movement that he was one of the leaders of, to try to convince people that Barack Obama was born in Kenya.
Yes. The
And this is when
birther thing.
right,
Yeah.
the birther movement, this is when,
Mhm.
um, basically he was able to, after that, control the religious, the fundamentalist wing of the Republican Party, which is a huge chunk, as we just saw, of the Republican Party, 38%, or, maybe a little less than that. But that's when I think he came into prominence with the religious right. And he's a cult leader, and people in his cult have a real hard time even criticizing him at all, to anything, even when he makes just the Access Hollywood tape, grab him
Yes.
by the.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was the end of him. When he said that, I really thought that that was the end of his political
So did a
career.
lot of people. So did a lot
Yeah.
of people. Yeah.
No, that's locker room talk. This was the thing that came out afterwards. That's just locker room talk. Um, I couldn't believe it. But did I go off this topic there?
No, no, we're not. We don't really have a topic. That's the thing. We're just having an interview, which kind of, I really want people to know you better. A lot of people just know you as somebody that makes Kent Hovind videos, but I know from us talking and being friends with you that there's so much more than that. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you do that isn't anything to do with Kent Hovind. Ken
Yeah.
Hovind, he thinks that people's lives revolve around him, and I think that he likes it when people's lives revolve around him. Like, he has his homeless shelter, which Dinosaur Adventureland is not a theme park; it is a homeless shelter. That people revolve around him as the central figure. Um,
He loves
you know,
that.
yeah, I have no doubt. I think that it sort of panders to his tendency to think he's superior, and sort of um he thinks that he's the most important thing in the entire world. I think that more and more as he goes along, he kind of is saying that. And I think that I see, and sort of talking about Trump, to tie it back in, I see Kent Hovind do a lot of the things Trump does.
I was just gonna
Just
say that same thing.
mm,
They both show all sorts of signs of narcissism, for one thing, and of being
yeah,
cult leaders. And yes, I think Ken Hovind likes the fact that we cover his material, and he likes the fact that you debate him. He likes to have that. He likes to have that contention so that he can show his audience. What do you think about that?
well, I don't debate him anymore. I think that somebody that's been convicted and awaiting a retrial for domestic violence is not somebody that I would step into a debate ring with. I think it's absolutely horrible. I think that's reprehensible.
Yeah,
So I think that if he served his time or he is, sort of found innocent or whatever, I will debate him. But I think that at a bare minimum, um, he has been convicted at a bench trial of domestic violence, even though he claims otherwise. And it's this, it's this propagating of being set up that's so similar to Trump as well. The fake news kind of
right.
thing. It's almost like if they lie enough, that they will change. What has actually happened. That somehow, you
History
know,
will change.
right.
It's a
So
kangaroo court or whatever they call
yeah.
it, you know.
Well, people do criticize me for sort of I did a Kent stream when he did an interview on a channel, and sort of so I went over all of his stuff, and I did get criticism for that. But I think it's important that if one person is just sitting there going and telling the lie over and over and over, and nobody stands up to correct it, and I get um drawing attention to them. I totally get that. But if they're going to stand there and lie, they will convince people by
Yeah,
sheer, you know, volume of their lies. I think that we do have to call out these people. And Trump
I
is one.
agree. I
He will
agree.
stand there and he thinks that if he lies over and over and over and over, the truth will change. And that is not the case. Um, we have all of this evidence that he did do the crimes that he was convicted of. We have evidence. We have on. He claims that he didn't try to influence the election. We have him on tape calling the Georgia governor saying, "Find this many votes for me to win."
Yes.
I don't know how somebody that has done that can possibly be considered for a position in government, much less president. That's
Well,
insane.
and then to follow up on that, several of the swing states, Trump or Rudy Giuliani tried to go in there and, change the electors and that kind of thing. But Trump propagated these lies to the American people for months and months and months before January
Mm,
6th.
right.
And of course, January 6th is a day that will stand in American history. It was an insurrection. Congress
Mm,
was in a session,
yes.
counting the electoral votes when these thugs, a lot of them Proud Boys, a lot of them with weapons and plans to do harm if they found, AOC or Pelosi or even Mike Pence. Who knows what would have happened to them if this massive people would have found them. And I just, and afterwards, the things that came out about it being from the left, being Antifa or the FBI had something to do with January
Mm,
6th. Just the most
yeah.
absurd,
Yeah.
again, conspiracies
Yeah.
that the people believed, the right wing believed. And I just can't believe that even people on the right who call themselves patriots could support Trump after that, after that day in particular.
Yeah, I don't know what was it was sort of this. Well, there was Antifa people, like there was just normal protesters, but Antifa people were the ones in the crowd sort of engaging with all. And this lack of evidence for it and the obviousness of that lie, the actual obviousness of that lie that he
Yeah.
he did. And the fact that people were not, like, he sort of said this stolen election, but when they went into court, um, they they
Lost
they kept losing, because when you
60
actually have
times.
to, yeah, when you actually have to produce evidence in court, they had none, and they can't lie in court because they would perjure themselves. Their attitude completely changes. I think the most obvious one was Rudy Giuliani sort of saying out in public, "Oh, it was stolen, it was a fraud, it was all of this stuff," gets into court and say, "No, we're not saying that the election was fraudulent," kind
Right.
of thing. And it's like, well, if you won't say it in a court, why are you saying it out in public? It's because there's no perjury laws for
Right.
public.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's sort of why people don't notice things like that is completely beyond me. But
The media they're watching isn't covering things
mm,
like that. And so,
mm,
Fox News used to be their mouthpiece, the right-wing mouthpiece, and even they got too far left sometimes for a lot of these, Trumpers. And so they went to OAN or the Epic Times, some of these extreme right,
yeah,
media
yeah.
outlets. And when you're just watching that all day, how are you even gonna find out, about what's happening in the
Mm.
real world, regarding the court cases? Or you're just gonna keep believing what Donald Trump tells you.
So I think, and this may be contentious, I think there should be some sort of license to be able to call yourself news. That you can't just make stuff up like Fox News does all the time. You can't just falsify things. I think that we had a royal commission into Sky News, which is essentially the same as Fox News over
Right,
here.
right.
Um, and a royal commission is sort of a government investigation. Companies do not want to be in a royal commission because it is a thorough investigation of their practices. But this whole idea that they can make up things that are not just, because don't get me wrong, I think that most news outlets over in the US and most of them over in Australia, they're lazy and they're sensationalist. They I think John Stewart said that once, that they're lazy because they won't investigate too thoroughly. They will just take a biased approach because they're just looking for sort of whatever is the easiest explanation rather than a nuance and things. And sensationalists, that they will drum up things to make money essentially.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Fox is a different beast. It actively lies to work towards some kind of agenda of Rupert Murdoch, of course.
But I guess where do you draw the line on whether somebody needs a license or not? Because, eh, a lot of people get their news off of YouTube and on small channels, like, I'll watch, like, David
Yeah.
Pakman or the Young Turks or one of these channels, or, um, but
I used to watch Young Turks. I don't like. I think that they have definitely sensationalized things before. Pacman seems to be very reasonable. I do think that Pacman's reliable, but I think that especially Young Turks, I think that Senk has sensationalized stuff in order to, you know, um,
yeah, and I like Anna a little bit more than Cenk, I think, on that
yeah,
show, but, e I just watch it. I take it with a grain of salt because I watch a bunch of things to try to
mm,
get a picture. I even watch, Fox at times to see what these guys are saying, Tucker Carlson, or I think it's important to know what they're reporting to their base. And but I don't, in terms of them being held responsible for what they're reporting, I think this last election cycle, they got hit hard by the election lies they were telling about the Dominion voting machines, and they got sued for a lot of money for that.
well, yeah, of course.
Um,
Dominion is a business running voting machines, are trying to make money, and part
right.
of their business enterprise is how sort of them being neutral and secure. If you start saying it's like if you're running, something like a security company, and you're like, oh, well, they let thieves in and allowed them to rob the place. Like, what? You can't do that. That it has to be actually demonstrably true for you to say that.
I think that was good that that happened to Fox News to
Oh,
hold them
absolutely.
accountable like that.
Yeah.
because I do think they had to scale it back a little bit after that, their rhetoric.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they got rid of Tucker Carlson after that,
Right,
because
right.
the whatever money he brought in, it would not be worth the $1 billion lawsuit that would be coming their way. And then, of course, he shows up, in Russia of all places, stroking Putin's ego, which was crazy, And I feel like Tucker Carlson had never seen a supermarket before. He was sort of talking, oh, they've got these carts with these things that you can,
These
and it's
scanners
like,
that
yeah, haven't you ever been in it? Like, we've got all of that stuff, and the sort of inclines that hold the trolley there. It's like everyone's got that, right?
that guy was born
Like,
with a gold spoon in his mouth,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and just this whole love affair with Putin is just so sick. Uh,
yeah.
Trump has even the followers, blaming Zelensky
Hmm.
for the war,
Yeah.
basically. Oh, he was corrupt and had fascist elements in his country, and there's corruption in every government in every country, but
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Well,
You
it's
know,
part of the Russian propaganda saying, well, there's corruption everywhere, there's nothing you can do, kind of thing. That's what they sort of tell their citizens, that no, every place is just as bad as every other place. But that's not the case. Like, it is not the corruption that we see between Putin and the oligarchs in Russia, who sort of embezzle so much funds from the economy that they can't even fight a war against Ukraine. I mean, they
yeah,
can't even, you know, it's, if Russia had a non-corrupt economy, and they had all the money from, they should have steamrolled Ukraine. They didn't. I mean, not that I'd want them to, but
right.
yeah, it's
I mean, Putin, isn't he considered one of the richest men in the world if you
yes.
go to what he really has, uh, not officially what he may report that he has.
Mm.
But yeah, I just don't understand how that party, the Republican Party, can go from being so anti-Soviet Union to all of a sudden defending Russia, uh,
Hmm.
and Putin. And to me, it's like, just, I don't know. It boggles my mind how anybody can support. I mean, Putin is just a murdering
Oh yeah.
thief, basically.
Oh yeah. What happened to his major opponent, Nolinsky, I think, Nolinsky, I think his
Right.
name was. I can't remember the name, but sort of, poisoned with a KGB from the Cold War neurotoxin. German doctors saved his life, and then he goes back to Russia. He's put in prison and dies in prison. Like, it just is. It's obvious, and any journalist that prints the right thing, they just get killed. It's
Yeah.
not, it's not even sort of, you know it's not even tried to be covered up. It's just, because Putin, even though he doesn't claim credit, I think he wants people to know that if they stand up to him, he's gonna
Right.
um so it's kind of obvious for a reason. Robin's got $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Robin. In August, an election denier is giving a speech in her town explaining how Dems used an algorithm to steal the election. I plan to troll this event. Um,
Nice.
that's really weird. Like, that's really weird. Like, you can't, if you have voting booths and stuff and they're using an algorithm, like, algorithms are just a series of steps in order to do something. Essentially, it's just a series of programming steps, essentially. That you would have to have that implemented all over the place, and it's not like the government doesn't sort of, monitor and control these things. The company just doesn't do what it wants. Dominion doesn't just do whatever. They have to give, the stuff to the government. It's sort of, it's so crazy a conspiracy theory, and their entire business model depends on them being neutral and impartial and
Yeah.
secure. Their entire
Otherwise,
business
they won't be
depends on it.
used again. I mean, they won't be, if
Correct.
it comes out they're corrupt, there's other avenues
Mhm.
people can go with in other types of machines or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
think it's
yeah,
interesting. Go ahead, Mark.
no, no, you go. You're the
I
guest.
I was just gonna, back on the topic of Russia, people's, the right wing's memory is so short, or else they're in denial of what happened in the 2016 election and the influence that
Mhm.
Russia had in that election. It'll never be
Yeah.
known what exactly the influence was, but it's been proven to be pervasive, uh,
Yes.
as investigated by the FBI, I don't know, the
Mhm.
CIA, but these kinds of agencies have proven that. And then, Trump surrounding himself with all these people that have such close Russian ties,
Mhm.
and, claims that there's Russia, Russia, Russia. Well, that investigation, um, the conclusion was a lot of indictments and jail time for people,
Yes. Yes.
dozens of people
Mhm.
that were Manafort, all these people. It wasn't just a smoke screen and it resulted in nothing. It didn't
Right.
even exonerate Trump, I don't think. It just made a conclusion.
They
It
didn't investigate him because he was the
Right,
president. They
right.
didn't investigate his connection to it, which I don't know why. I don't know why the president should be above the law. It's crazy. The president should be, or the leader of any country should be the one who has to follow the law
Yeah,
above all else.
sets the
All
example.
else. Right. Right. I think it is absolutely crazy. And I mean, um, you could say, and this has been going on for a long time in the US, sort of. So, um, Vietnam, they didn't have a declaration of war as they're supposed to, and Iraq, they didn't have a declaration of war as they're supposed to, and neither did we. I mean, we're guilty of that as well. But it's sort of um, this idea that, well, if you're president, you can do anything essentially.
Yeah, yeah, in terms of war. And you can create events as a president to even cause wars. Um, you know, I'm thinking like of, well, one thing is like tying Iraq to 9/11.
Right.
Now, not that 9/11 was created, but having putting out the propaganda that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and was harboring Al Qaeda, which Saddam
Mhm.
Hussein, if he came across Al Qaeda in his country, would have killed them instantly.
Oh
Um,
yes.
and the weapons of mass destruction, proved to be crap. And
Yes.
so to invent propaganda like that for our invasion of Iraq, uh, one of the worst things that ever happened in this country, along
Mhm.
with Vietnam, of course. But I would have thought we would have learned from Vietnam's example and the way people fought against the Vietnam War in the 60s and 70s, that we wouldn't have had that invasion of Iraq, because people did fight that invasion before it even happened. I was one of them, but
Yeah.
it happened, and it's
Mhm.
destabilized the entire region. Not to mention killed how many American soldiers and how many civilian, the poor people that live there. And I just think that I've always heard that perhaps the Gulf of Tonkin incident in Vietnam was kind of a thing manufactured to then be able to go in and uh, get more troops, and uh, because that war
Yeah, I've
started
heard that
out
as well. Mm.
small, under Dwight Eisenhower as a
Mhm.
police action, so-called quote police action,
Yeah.
before Kennedy upped the ante, and then Johnson and Nixon. And
Have you been to protests for that kind of thing, the anti-war protests? Have you been out and about?
I've protested the Iraq war before the invasion of Iraq before it started,
Yeah.
before I guess it was it Shock and Awe.
It was the
Um,
Gulf War. at that point? Because
Well,
Iraq
the
Iraq
goal,
had attacked Kuwait. That's
yes,
what
no,
happened.
yeah. So the invasion of Iraq, I'm talking about in
Right. Yeah,
2003,
the Iraq War.
not the
Yes.
Gulf War.
Right.
I was probably not, I was politically active then and I was liberal, but I don't remember protesting the Gulf War. Um, but it was a horrible thing. I still don't know what to make of it. I mean, Kuwait, it's almost like we gave Saddam Hussein. I mean, there's evidence that they gave him not permission, but almost said that they wouldn't do anything if he invaded Kuwait. Have you ever heard
I
that?
don't. No, I don't think that was the case. I really don't think so. I think that there was always implicitly that America would not allow Kuwait to be, invaded, kind of thing, because Kuwait was on very good terms with America and had, was supplying them oil, much like, if they
Well,
attacked Saudi Arabia, kind of thing, they would do exactly the same thing.
I mean, you got to remember we were supporting Iraq in the war against Iran,
Well, yeah,
and Iraq was killing its own people with the weapons we were selling them and killing the Kurds
yes.
with biological weapons and chemical weapons and what have you.
Well, I'm not
So,
sure it was biological. It definitely was chemical. I don't think it
yeah.
was biological, but yeah. But yes, absolutely true. Yes.
So, Saddam Hussein was our quote unquote friend at that point in time. But, and I don't have any, I do have, I'd have to find the evidence of Bush not giving permission, but kind of giving like, we won't move against you if you invade Kuwait. But, I'm probably wrong there, but I'll have to look more at that.
So, do you do anything on your channel? So obviously you're really interested in the politics. Do you do anything on your channel doing US politics or anything like it?
I've always tried to steer clear of politics on the channel. I don't know
Mhm.
why. Yeah,
So you just bring it to mind, basically. That's what,
yeah, it's all we've talked about.
yeah, yeah. Do
I
you
have to
have
talk
any
I have
other
to get
people?
it out somewhere, I have to
Yeah,
get it
no,
out
that's
somewhere.
that's fair, totally fair. Look, I this will go wherever it goes. I honestly, I'm here for the experience, to be honest with you. So I don't really mind. I mean, we have our own, should I say, problem child, conservative, Lord Voldemort in Australia, who his track record on gay marriage and immigration are terrible.
Yeah,
um, and it does worry me that a lot of the times Australia takes its cues from the US, and especially gay marriage and things like that. There was a huge push for it over here, but I think the from what I've read of the Project 2025, it suggests rolling that back to
right.
a family is man and woman, and that's all, kind of thing. And
Or
man
leaving
and
it up to
woman.
I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry, I
No,
interrupted you.
well, also the trans rights that's saying that man and woman are decided at birth. There is only two genders, kind of thing, which is absolutely horrible. Like, it's just reprehensible.
Yeah, so basically, leaving it up to the states whether gay marriages will be legal or not, and we know with the politics in some of those states that, of course, it's not gonna be legal. You're not gonna have if they overturn the Supreme Court ruling on gay marriage, do you think they're gonna have gay marriage in Arkansas
No.
or Oklahoma or, any number of states? And isn't Project 2025 trying to get rid of any medical assistance to, um, trans folks that are under the age of 18? Any sort of medical, um, whether it's, yeah, I don't mental health or, treating, gender dysphoria or anything like that, from what
Right.
I understand.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure about that, but
Well, I mean, just because of people are trans, but that doesn't mean they have gender dysphoria, kind of thing. So um, the part where it becomes gender dysphoria is kind of when it like most mental illness or most neurological conditions, it becomes a disorder when it causes disorder and when it's affecting your life.
yeah,
But some people are trans and it doesn't, it doesn't cause that disorder in their life. So they're not considered to have gender dysphoria because that is a disorder. But some people don't have it and are still trans, like it doesn't, so the reason why, the autism is considered a disorder is because it affects your life in a negative way in certain situations. You have to manage it. Same with ADHD, both of which I have. They're both disorders because they cause significant disorder in my life. And there's ways to manage it, but it doesn't, just because you have autism doesn't necessarily mean it's a disorder. You might, sort of be totally fine with it. It doesn't cause disorder. Same with anything. It's not considered a disorder unless it's affecting your life in a negative way.
right.
So that, but there are people out there who do have that disorder, trans people that have gender dysphoria, and it's a disorder and it causes very negative, like there's sort of comorbidities like depression, anxiety, all of these things that come with it that are a significant disorder in their lives. So I worry about that, to sort of saying, well, we're not going to even treat this kind of
Yeah,
thing. It's very, very worrying that you have, and what worries me the most is that the people deciding this have absolutely no medical expertise in the area whatsoever. Sort of, so psychiatrists and psychologists are pretty well, there's a consensus among them of people with gender dysphoria, and here's the treatment for it, kind of thing. And then you have trans people, and they have a right to express themselves how they want. They're pretty well, there's a consensus among psychologists and
right.
psychiatrists that of what these things are. I don't know why we'd be listening to a whole bunch of old white men and women who have no experience in this field whatsoever, and a bunch of priests. Like, why are we listening to these people?
Right.
There's
Well,
people out there who have devoted their lives to studying it. Why we're listening to these idiots? Like, I don't understand why.
why don't you? It's the same group of people that are creationists that don't believe the science involved in uh, evolution, and of course, they're not going to agree with any sort of medical conclusions regarding trans people. They're biased, and
Mhm.
they've their parents were biased and they're biased as well. And as we saw, it's a high percentage of people in this country. There's a lot of anti-trans people. We deal with them all the time, you and I, in these communities of creationists in particular. There's a lot of anti-trans. Of course, they use women's sports as the way to, I guess, try to mobilize people into their hate. Um, do you know what I mean?
Mhm. Well, I think that this trans thing is just an election. It's just like the immigrants, essentially. I think it is just something that they've drummed up because um, sort of they have been around for a long, long time. Trans people have been around for
Yes.
ages,
Well,
and
forever,
nobody
right?
cared. Well, I mean, if you're looking at the history of America, they've been around for a long, long time, kind of thing. I think that, like, somebody like Ed Wood, for instance,
Yeah.
who directed in women's clothes and felt more comfortable
Plan 9 from
as a
outer
woman.
space.
Correct, yeah. Who was, I mean, he was an eccentric character, absolutely lovable character. But nobody cared. That's the thing. They'll just say, "Hey, they're eccentric. They're whatever." I think that this jumping up and down and saying they're coming for your children kind of thing is just a way to motivate their base. That's all it is. I hope that, and I guess a prediction that I have is that after this election, it'll just die down again until the next time they need to sound that dog whistle like they all do.
I hope so. I mean, it is part of the Project 2025 agenda. And
Mm. Yeah,
I think if those people get in power, anything can happen. Of course, the majority of Americans aren't religious fundamentalists, I don't think. But I'm just really worried about Trump getting elected and the Supreme Court getting even more packed with, right now it's mostly Catholic, I think. Um, at some point it could be completely ultra conservative. And they're coming out with things like protecting Trump from,
yeah.
the documents that he illegally had at Mar-a-Lago all over his house, top secret documents. And they're trying to whitewash all that stuff now in the Supreme Court. But I just changed the subject.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine.
So I think this is a pretty big election, and I don't, I'm not going to tell people how to vote, but I just hope people do get out there and vote. And I'm kind of glad to see that the young people in this country are getting out to vote, and for the most part, they seem to be a lot more liberal than older people in this country.
Well, I think that as time goes on, the Pew Research says that due to the rise of the nuns, by about 2070, at the latest, Christianity will no longer be a majority. The prevalence of people changing away from Christianity, and that's not to say they're going to all become atheists. They'll change to things like spiritualism and things like that, with less doctrinal control, but sort of still have a belief system.
Right, but what about, the environmental things that this Project 2025 is proposing? Basically, abandoning any sort of strategy for greenhouse gas emissions and downsizing the EPA. And, we're in the middle of an environmental mass extinction of species, for one thing. And with the devastation of the rainforests in Amazonia and Indonesia, and even here in the United States in the Pacific Northwest, along with, things like emissions, it's almost going to be, doesn't it have to come at some point to a tipping point where it starts to get, the climate starts to get completely out of control? And I don't know if we're there yet, but that should be the biggest thing on people's minds of
Yeah,
any issue in this election, should be the environment, because it affects everybody on the planet, not just Americans, not just Australians, but everybody on the planet. And
yeah.
it's a domino effect. And the things is, and the United States, in some ways does lead the way. And in some ways we're worse and we follow. But you could say that, of course, Scandinavian countries have maybe more governments that represent the people better, social democracies than the United States. But I think in some ways, culturally, we lead the world. And in order to go down, if we go down a path of just complete environmental destruction and just ignoring it, I just think it's bad. What do you think?
Well, I think that sort of the scientists are telling us it's sort of an existential crisis. It's something that could cause humanity in particular to become extinct. I don't think that is I don't think that is an understatement, and I don't think that they're lying about it. I think that everything that was predicted when I was younger is actually happening. Like they said, more fires, more wild weather, more floods, and all of
Yeah.
those things are being ticked. People will say, "Oh, well, they said it would be at X time. You know, it'll get to this level, and it hasn't yet. They're wrong." And it's like, yeah, because we did something about it. Like we reduced carbon footprints and things. Um, everything they're saying is going to happen. I mean, if the Bible made a prediction that, hey, you know, there will be more floods and more this and more that, you know, it would be, you know, it would be a novel prediction. It would be quite correct, but they don't believe it when scientists predict the same things and they actually start to happen. I don't understand that.
And they're putting
I
it
don't.
to Armageddon and, you know, the tribulation, when it's actually just real environmental issues that we need to tackle. But when you're viewing it as part of end times doctrine, it, you know, why would you do anything about it when you actually are looking forward to Jesus coming down and
Yeah.
killing off a good section of
Mm.
human beings, which I don't
Oh
know why
yeah.
anybody would not only believe that, but actually wish that on the world. I mean, but you hear we hear it all the time, right? That,
Mhm.
you know, we're in the middle of it, and the
Yep.
environment is something that we can not fix, but we can improve things. You know, I think overpopulation is a big part of the environmental problem, but um, I think naturally people are having, in some countries, are having less children than they were in the past.
Well, I mean, it's kind of um, overpopulation. People think it means, oh, well, you know, there's enough room for um, um, sort of people. You can fit X amount of people into an area, but that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about overpopulation. We're talking about the resources
Yeah.
to support X amount of people and to live, if not, you know, lavishly, at least comfortably. All of this requires resources from us. Power is a big one. Like, where are we going to get the power from? Sort of so. Um, Fuel is a big one. Like, where are we going to get the fuel from? Because in 300 years we've gone through 50% of the world's oil reserves, and there are more. We're basically saying, hey, maybe there's more we can get from here, here, and here. But so it's fine for the moment. Like, our generation will be fine, and that's the tragedy of it. Our generation is going to be absolutely fine, but 2 3 generations down the track, it won't be, because if we continue down the same route, it's not going to be fine. The problem is these insane people who believe in the Bible. They think that there's not going to be 2 3 generations down the track, like
Right.
Kent Hovind, for instance. Kent Hovind has said that the world will end before he dies.
Yes.
He thinks he's, you know, it's on the verge of happening. Um, these people, they don't realize that people have been saying it's on the verge of happening for hundreds and thousands of years. Like, it's not on the verge of happening. They've said that over and
Thousands.
over and over.
Ever since
Oh yeah,
Jesus supposedly lived, people have
yep,
been predicting. Even before that, of course. I mean, I think there were apocalyptic Jews in Judaism, and, you know, probably other religions as well. But certainly, since for 2,000 years, uh, wasn't the Black Plague considered end times, something that was happening at the end of times? Um, the Seventh Day Adventists predicted the end of the world back in the 19th century, I think, is when that religion was founded. But there's been all sorts of end times, and none of them have come true. And so people like that believe that today should look at the history of
mm,
end times cults and what they predicted, and nothing, you know, nothing happened. But one thing you said is we may be okay, you and I, but there's people that are dealing with just food and water issues in the
Hmm.
world.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and things
Drought
that
and
you don't.
famine issues that, we don't really, in our kind of countries where, especially the US, we're kind of, um, we cover our ears to what the rest of the world's going through sometimes. And but there's a lot of places in the world where there's droughts and famines, and they're getting worse and worse. What we see in our country is, these massive firestorms, and we've had them here where I live, and also, the hurricanes seem to be getting
Yeah.
worse, and we know sea levels rising. We know the glaciers are. There's a great documentary called, I think it's called Chasing Water, but it's about the it talks about the ice core data in Greenland and Antarctica, and how we have, examples of the atmosphere going back tens of thousands of
Hmm.
years, and how we can see,
But they don't
with just
believe that there
I
has been
know,
tens of thousands of years. That's the
I
problem.
know,
Like
but
we've got ice cores going back 800,000 years, but they
right.
say, "Oh no, they're faked or whatever." Like it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, but, even if they admitted of 6,000 years, I mean, the fact that the CO2 levels are spiking since the Industrial Revolution in these core samples, um, they're just in denial of that, and this Chasing Water documentary films glaciers receding, you know, and receding so quickly, that it was kind of a wake-up call when I saw it, that, wow, I didn't know that it was that bad. Um, but it's a good documentary if you've never seen it.
No, I don't think I have. What was it called?
I think it's called Chasing Water.
Chasing Water. Okay. No, I haven't. I haven't heard of it. We did have somebody in the community who was um, a climatologist. That was oh god, what was his name? I'm blanking on his name now. He used to hang around at Amy Newman's as well.
And he was a climatologist?
Yeah, yeah, Jason Torn. Jason Torn was his
Hmm.
name. I remember Jason Torn. I haven't seen him. I think he went over to uh the what's that, the coffee place or something? I can't remember where he went over to Clubhouse is where he went.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
my mind is
Chasing
not
Ice is the name of the documentary.
Chasing Ice. Okay, cool. No, I will check it out. That sounds interesting. But it's kind of, yeah. I don't know, but I mean, we're talking about people that don't even believe that the Earth is 10,000 years old, much less the billions of years. And I mean, ice cores alone, 800,000 we can get from ice cores in
Yeah.
Antarctica. I
So ho
don't know how you, and I mean, we can we can um we can even see the permutations in the Earth's orbit causing different stuff in those ice cores. Like we can follow the
precession of the
temperature
axis, or
precession. Yep, absolutely. We can even follow that in the ice cores. Like everything,
right.
lines up with one another. I don't understand why they sort of have this attitude of, well, no, it's all fake. I don't get it.
What's interesting is and I don't know if you've noticed this when I'm sure you have, when you've debated creationists, but they can't steel man the evolution position, with few exceptions. Like maybe Donnie from Standing for Truth might be able to steel man evolution evidence. Hovind can't. Um,
Well, no.
Hovind couldn't tell you the first thing about ERVs or human chromosome 2 fusion. Um, do you run across that, where you find that they don't even understand what they're arguing against?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so they'll say something and you're sort of like, well, tell me you don't understand evolution without telling me you don't understand evolution. Like they'll say, isn't fitness like means that you have to kill everybody around you? And it's like,
Right.
oh my,
Right.
oh my great Darwin, you do not even understand the first thing about evolution.
Every other species has to die off if one rises to the top or whatever. That's what they believe, the evolutionists, or I don't even like the word evolutionists, but what they believe they're
Yeah,
saying, the scientists are saying.
yeah. Yeah, I don't, and evolution is one that I will happily do a debate on evolution any day of the like. It's just such a strong position to come from. It's crazy. I noticed that sort of Donnie hasn't had me back on there for ages, kind of thing, which I guess I consider a win, I suppose. Like I've said to him in chat, like I'm happy to come back on, and he just hasn't found
Hmm.
anybody, or you know. Uh, I don't know, because he has told me that, like, I pull reasonably big crowds, kind of thing. Like when
Right.
I debate, I get a lot of people from the, religious side coming, kind of thing, because it's not just
You're a
me
great debater.
insulting people. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you and Grayson are two of the best out there in our community. Just two that come to the top of my head, but um, I think you guys do a really good job. I've always
oh,
said,
Grayson's
as a
great. Yeah.
Grayson's great, yeah. As a geologist, I've always maintained that I think that geology is their Achilles heel because that's why somebody like Hovind has
Mm,
to completely um, disagree with uh, or say the geologic column doesn't exist at all. The fossil record doesn't exist at all. Radiometric dating is 100%
right.
fiction. He's saying that because those are his worst subjects. Whereas if it's something about genetics, he always goes back to the design
Hmm.
argument. But geologic evidence, he has a really hard time confronting because it's observed and it ties together. It all ties together. I mean, genetics, geology, paleontology, biogeography, they all tie together. That's why evolution is such a strong scientific theory.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but just the fact that Hovind has to dismiss them 100% shows that he's not comfortable with those subjects, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and some people debating it, I'm kind of okay with, because they actually kind of understand it. Like if you sort of talk to, um, some of the people like Sal, for instance. I mean, he has a belief that sort of everything was designed based upon the complexity and sort of all of this stuff, but he does understand evolution, at least at a basic level. Hovind doesn't even understand the first thing about it. And, our friend in the chat made by, he doesn't understand the first thing about it. Like, it was incredible, the lack of scientific understanding that he had. Like when Atheist Junior sort of said thinks oil is replenishing for some reason. I don't know why. Um, Here's the thing, and the shortage that we're talking about, actually, this is something I forgot to say. The shortages that we're talking about, some of the weirdest things we have shortages of. Helium, for instance. Helium is really useful as a marker in medicine, and it's used by a lot of different functions in medicine. We put it in balloons
Yeah. Yeah.
and let it escape into space, essentially. Like,
Rare earth minerals, right?
rare earth minerals, right? Yeah. So all of this kind of stuff. At the moment, we're fine, but it's, as I've said to Leo, it's unsustainable over a long term period, and by long term I mean generations. Um, we have to do something else in order to make it sustainable. But the same people that are trying to stop us doing environmentalism are the same ones who dislike spending in NASA, where we might do mining off planet kind of thing. It sounds like science fiction, but it is quite possibly be feasible.
I've got mixed feelings about the space program. And I know you've talked about this before about exploring Mars, for example. And I just don't know if we have that luxury to where we can spend that money on such a project when, with the state of the way things are with our own environment. I mean, we've got a perfectly good planet right here that we've lived on for life has been around for 4 billion years, plus or minus.
Sure.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that sort of at some point we've got to either like, yeah, we can cut down on resources a lot. We can cut down on using resources through various environmental practices, various, sort of energy capture practices, sort of recycling and renewal practices. But at the end of the day, it will be on a limited time frame unless we can find resources that are not like this planet is finite. It's massive, but it's finite. That's the simple premise. And our growth does not seem finite. So you either have a finite amount of growth, which is fine. You can basically have a sort of a cap on population kind of thing. You find resources from elsewhere. You expand the scope of where you're getting resources from. And me personally, I think we can expand the scope of where we're getting resources from, quite frankly.
But I mean, what are our choices? Mars and the moon are really,
Yeah.
aren't they really the only places that we can feasibly
No.
go to that we can actually mine? And I mean,
Asteroids?
okay. True. That's true. It just depends on how much we spend, and what we're gonna get back in return.
Mm-hmm.
It's not cheap. Space travel and space mining would be incredibly expensive.
Sure. But what's the option? I mean, we're basically on a timeline
Well, we
then.
could
And
simplify people could simplify their lives and, do we need all the material things that we've surrounded ourselves with in our lives at this point? Um,
well,
you
no,
know,
no. But eventually you're sort of you're going to have to contend with the fact that oil will be used up eventually. Oil takes about 300 million
right.
years for the algae blooms, which don't exist anymore. The algae blooms that made up the
The
majority of our
Carboniferous
oil.
or
Right. So there are algal blooms that sort of on water that got submerged and then they died and then they were cooked by the magma under the mantle in the mantle to certain temperatures that transformed it into oil. It's basically preserved sunlight in energy form, really, when you get down to it. We don't have those algae blooms covering half of the world anymore. B, we've used up that oil reserve in like 300 years. It takes 300 million to actually get to where it needs to go. Synthetics can be an option, but all in all, we're looking at a very, very limited amount of ability to be able to do that. Like, what are we going to power on after that? Sunlight is a good idea, but not very feasible for traveling with car and things like that. You can use radio sort of nuclear power, sort of thorium or all of these different things, but incredibly unstable, incredibly unsafe for small application. Could be feasible for large application, but eventually that's going to run out as well. Uranium and the nuclear fossil fuels, nuclear fissionable material is limited. Fusion is a good bet. You could throw all of your money into fusion, but will it actually work?
Yeah.
Right? Will we actually be able to pull that off? Maybe, maybe not. I think that but don't forget that NASA's budget is so small. It's so small. Like it is a tiny, tiny percentage. Like I don't. Have you actually seen what NASA's budget is?
Let's check it out. I mean,
It's
I know
like
the
3%
United States
or
has a
something.
massive defense, a massive inflated
Right.
defense budget, and
So
I think we can
so
afford a lot of things in you know, in
NASA's
education and the
budget
environment. Yeah,
NASA's budget is 22.6 billion in 2020. That's 0.48% of the budget.
right, right.
0.48%. I would suggest we could get that up to 1% and still not, be busting the bank. Just, you know what I mean? Like,
could you do the things that you want to do with that amount of funding? Or would
Depends
you
on the
have to take,
timeline. I
or would
think
you
it's
have to
just a
take from
lot.
the defense
Well,
budget
I
or
think it's
something
just a
else,
lot slower. I think it's just a lot slower. If you do sort of, drop the budget down kind of thing. In 1965, it was 34.2 billion kind of thing. In currency for adjusted kind of stuff, right? So it was a 10 billion over what it is today, essentially, if we converted the dollar in 1965 kind of thing. And that's sort of just before we went to the moon and all of that kind of stuff, right? So
yeah.
I guess I'm putting it to you that this amount that you're saying is actually like a complete pittance compared to, like, it's not even 1%. It's 0.5%, essentially.
Right. I understand that. I just the way you're making it sound is we're just going to continue. We just want to continue living like we're living today, and I just don't foresee that happening in the future. I think
Well, no.
in terms of like transportation, for example, I think the time of like individual automobiles and things like that are going to be a thing of the past, and we're going to be doing mass transit and a lot more, and that's just going to be how we get from place to place. And I don't think it's not going to be the same to where we're going through. The oil is just going to be so expensive at a certain point because we're probably not going to proactively decrease our oil consumption until the prices go up so much from petroleum that people don't use it. And we're already seeing that with, electric vehicles and stuff like that. Even though electricity has to be generated and that kind of thing. But I just don't see petroleum. Petroleum is just naturally going to be used less and less based on the cost.
Well, and that's something that sort of planetary exploration is not going to solve, right? Because there's not going to be oil on an asteroid.
Right.
Not going to happen, right? Like, that is not happening, right? So no invading asteroids, America. There's no oil there for you. Stop.
Probably not even on Mars. I wouldn't imagine. Not too much oil there either. But it's possible. Who knows?
No, I don't think so.
Venus is out of the question. I mean, have you ever? Venus is not a nice place to visit. There's not going to be astronauts landing on Venus and trying to mine there.
Different category altogether. Venus is sort of an absolute nightmare at huge temperature with acid. It is just, I mean, we sent probes to Venus. Yeah, we sent probes to Venus and they just gave a squawk as they went into the atmosphere and were just destroyed completely by the temperature and electricity in the atmosphere and stuff. Like, it is a nightmare over there. But
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the Russians had a couple probes that they landed. They snapped a photo and then they were done. I
Mhm.
don't remember what
Yeah.
mission that was, but
Yeah. Essentially. So, I mean, all of this though, it's kind of we're not going to find, but there might be other stuff that we can use, like for instance, helium, like
yeah,
all of these other stuffs, rare earth minerals and things like that.
right.
There may be other elements that we can use. So it's not just a case of, well, we're not going to find exactly what we want, so we're not going to attempt it. It's sort of like there may be other things we can do. I mean, far future, like, have you heard of the Dyson sphere?
No.
Okay. So a Dyson sphere was, I can't remember who proposed it, famous science fiction author proposed it, but it's like a energy capturing sphere around a sun, basically. If you can build something around the sun to capture all of the energy output of the star. Now, this is totally theoretical, may happen millions of years into the future, but, imagine the energy output of that. That would
Yeah.
be insane, because the major reason why we don't get as much energy, it's reason why we use solar for things like satellites, is because the atmosphere isn't diluting any of that solar energy. It just grabs. So we
Right.
can run things on solar energy in space that couldn't be run on Earth, because the solar energy is so much greater. So it's things like that. And don't forget that um, there's a whole bunch of technologies that NASA has developed along the way. They're called spin-off technologies. For instance, the MRI machine. You've got cloud technologies were first implemented by them. The firefighters use technologies for breathing and temperature developed by NASA. You've got the space
Yeah.
blanket that is incredible insulator. You've got all of these technologies that it's discovering. So even if it wasn't sort of viable long term, I think there would still be a reason why we would do space exploration. But
Yeah, I mean, you could say the same thing about funding the military. I mean, haven't we had a whole bunch of inventions that have happened because of, funding the Army and the Navy and different spin-offs,
yeah,
like you're saying? I can't name
sure.
anything off the top of my head, but there's been a lot, I think. And, we just have to look at what we're funding, and
Mm,
in the United States, we just have this huge defense budget that just looms over us, and from what I understand,
yeah.
I think a lot of it is corporate welfare disguised as,
Oh,
you know
sure. Sure. I
um
mean, the industrial military complex is a thing, like it's an
Right,
industry built upon
right,
supplying the military, sure.
and I just think, if we made cuts in that, then we probably could increase funding to NASA.
Sure.
We could make college available to everybody that wanted to go to college, and also environmental programs, which is, I think, important. I think, and of course, universal health care. I mean, our healthcare system is, even Obamacare. I mean, I think Obamacare is basically just insurance companies are the ones that are raking in the money. It's
Mm,
better than the previous system, but it's not, single payer healthcare.
right. So
I mean, you guys
2023.
have
Yeah, so defense was 12% of spending. So 12%.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, was that the highest, or was
No, healthcare was the highest at
healthcare is
23%.
the highest? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, how is your healthcare system there?
It's great. Well, it's good. It does have some flaws. There's sort of a two-tier system. There's Medicare, and there is private health insurance available. You can sort of buy private to cover the things that healthcare doesn't, that Medicare doesn't, like dental, for instance, and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of but the major difference that I see is the pricing of pharmaceuticals. Like the American pharmaceutical industry is charging you guys
Yeah.
insane rates for, because the Commonwealth regulates all pharmaceuticals. It doesn't matter what. There is no open market for pharmaceuticals. It is, you will charge what the government says you can charge. You present your costs and the government tells you what you charge for it.
That's how it
And
should be.
yeah, absolutely. And basically, so it means that um medication is, $10 or whatever. It's not hundreds of dollars like in the US. I think the most egregious one I ever saw was like an asthma medication. I think it was insane. Um,
Well,
and
their
there's
lobby
no.
is so strong in this country. I mean, Pfizer and these different companies that just have a huge lobby in,
Yes, they do.
our politicians. And
Yeah, they do.
I think Biden did something to cap insulin costs,
Mm.
um, but I think that's a rare instance, and I don't even know what the price was for that. But
Yeah, I'm trying to find US versus Australia.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
so
would,
like for instance,
yeah,
Equilus, $229 in the US, and it's $50 it costs
geez,
78% less in Australia. And this isn't sort of just an outlier. There is like, you know, tons of stuff like this. Um, and the markups for their drugs, I don't think they even have to give them. They just charge whatever they want for it. But 4 to 5 times as more cost, it doesn't, you know, yeah.
it's treated like any other corporation here in
Oh
America.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can reap in as much profit as you can get, but unlike most things, we're dealing with people's lives here, and there are things where the government should step in and protect the public, and that's
Mm,
one of them, I think.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because, sort of the idea of supply and demand, right? So, as the demand goes up, the price gets higher, basically. I don't think that should apply to things that are necessary for life.
Right.
Like, I don't think that should be applied to medications and things that are saving people's lives. I think that the government saying, hey, you can't charge that amount if people need it to live. um yeah, I really strenuously think that is a problem.
I mean, shouldn't every thing that people need to live be a social program to a certain extent? I mean, water, for
Yeah.
example, food, um, things that people need to survive should be the prices should be controlled by the government because it's basic survival
Mhm.
things for people. I'm trying to think of something else. Well, of course, you know, police and fire departments and stuff. Those are, I would say, necessary, especially in this country.
Sure. I mean, everybody believes in some form of socialism, even if it's just fire department, police department, ambulances, things like that. But more and more, they're sort of being taken towards, private organizations like private cops for gated communities, and, sort of private healthcare that doesn't stop for others. It really doesn't serve the society well. It
It's a
really
horrible
does.
idea. It's a horrible
Oh,
idea to have private police that are trying to cut costs. But, you know, I mean, you need to have social I mean, the military is a huge social program in this country, as we were just discussing, right? I mean, it's a social program. We pay for it with our tax dollars. And but you have libertarians. You have a lot of not a lot, but there are libertarians in
Mm,
this country that I just think that their political stance is flawed because they have no solution beyond saying that they don't want government intervention in their lives, but they don't offer a solution about what to
right,
do with
right.
roads and highways. And
Hmm. Yeah,
do you have
yeah.
libertarians in Australia or something?
Not really. I mean, I won't say there's no libertarians in Australia, but not really. So, Australia has a long history of sort of workers being um, taking other people to task, basically. So, there's no real libertarian party in Australia, or not one that gets even a look at being one of the minor parties. The major parties are Liberal and the Liberal Party and the Labor Party. The Labor Party is kind of a workers' party, right? It represents the unions, the workers. It's more of a socialist party than it is like you have Republicans and Democrats. The Liberal Party is more like the Democrats, really. The Labor Party is left of them. So our politics is on, a very, very left hand sort of, it's even more left than yours. So
Well,
calling me a liberal isn't correct because I'm not a liberal. Yeah.
I mean, I think our two parties are right of center, even the Democrat Party. I don't,
Yeah.
um, the
Yeah.
Republican, and I think it's shifted that way through time, but certainly the Republicans have shifted to the right almost to the point of fascism. Um, and I don't think that that's like exaggerating. I'm not going to call them, Nazis because I don't think that that's accurate. And that, that's talks about a particular political party in Germany, but just overall fascism and pro corporation, and fascism was pro church. And I just see a lot of similarities between the extreme right wing in this country and fascism. But even the Democratic Party, I think, is why I said that they have some social safety nets for people. They're still representing the major corporate
Corporate.
donors.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know how that's going to change. I mean, how do you look at this country in terms of what we're going through politically and how to improve the situation apart from just voting?
Um, yeah, it's just the candidates are never like so because so just like in my country, both countries have a problem with the candidates being responsible to the party and not the people. That's the main problem at the moment. That they only get selected for voting if they do what the party wants. So the question is, do they care about the election down the road, or they care about the pre-selection right now? And they generally will care about what the party wants right now. Very few people will go against it. Most notably, Bernie Sanders has gone against it, but he's sort of been shut out as any kind of candidate for the presidency. So I think there is sort of a price to pay for that. But I think at the main level, the problem is really lobbying, like the
Yeah.
corporate funds being put into these parties in exchange for them doing things that are not in the public interest. I think at a base level, and my country is the same. There's rules around how much you can give. There's rules around sort of being open and honest about companies giving you money, but there isn't them preventing it. That would have a secondary effect that the most funded candidates would be the ones with their own money, which may not be any better. So there's a definite problem here somewhere that capitalism is influencing democracy in ways that it should not be or should not ought to be.
It's
I
controlling
think
it. Yeah, it's not just influencing it, but it's completely controlling it as far as I can see.
I would be happier if each candidate was given a certain amount they could spend, right? Like just a
Yeah,
hard cap on how much they could spend, and that that money went into, like, the election committees or the election people. We have the Australian Electoral Commission. They would take a percentage of the whatever anybody gets and put it in for open and free debates between all candidates, kind of thing, that you could do. They would put that on, and that would pay for the elections, kind of thing. I think that would be a way better system than just no limit. Whoever gets the most wins the or has a better shot of winning the election. I think that sort of just making a cap on it, and you have to rely on your platform instead of your
right.
advertising, would be more amenable to me. But that's just my opinion.
I totally agree with that, and I think that that would nurture more parties than just the two major parties. Um, if we had a healthy system, I think that we would have, you know, 4 parties, for example, or at least 4 parties. We'd have, you know, a right party, a left party, and then 2 parties that are kind of in the middle. And
Yeah.
more of a, more like it is, I think, in some European countries. I just don't think the two-party system is. I think that you have the corporations that like to pit the Democrats against the Republicans,
Sure.
just as
Yeah.
long as you're criticizing the Democrats and the Republicans and not the system itself. And
Well,
they pit the politicians against the media, for example, and yet the how many of the media are owned by a handful of corporations of the major media? They're run by the corporations, as are the politicians. So I think these battles are set up to have you not question what's really going on at the top, the money trail, as you were saying.
well, I think the other thing is to make a ranked choice voting or preferential voting. We have preferential, so it may interest you to learn. Now, this might be interesting to you, but we have two-party system as well, essentially, right? We've got a bicameral system, meaning we have 2 houses, and we have a two-party system, essentially. But the difference is we have ranked choice voting. So you can vote for somebody who isn't. So at the moment, so the way that I'm probably much like your own, the House of Representatives is made up of your local member, right? So I live in
Yeah,
an area. I voted for my local member. Now my area was Liberal. We're probably on the edge of this area, and we're sort of the more progressive people, but it was always Liberal, and it has been Liberal for like 200 years. That changed last election. An independent ousted them from their seat. We've got an independent member now. I can't remember how many independents are in the House of Representatives, but there's a lot in House of Representatives. There's a lot of them. They're called the Teal Independents, and Australia. Australia. It's because when going to vote, not only is it compulsory, which, to be honest with you, 10 independents now sit in
hmm,
right. That's a lot of influence that just ordinary, people have, because that independent, they're not thinking about, hey, what does my party need?
right.
That is the last thing on their mind, because they don't have a party, right? They're thinking, what do the people that got me here need? And I think that's what people are crying out for, on both sides. I'm not saying, hey, it's just the Republic. No, it's both sides. People
Yes,
who are in Democrats area also saying, hey, stop paying attention to your party and what your party needs and towing the party line, and start paying attention to what your constituents need. That's what you should be doing. But there is a problem with, as I said earlier, that leaning of, um, well, my elections a few years in the future, my party could swap me out now or do something to me now. So I'm going to do what the party wants. That's the problem. But with with ranked choice or preferential, you can vote for an independent and then go, well, if not an independent, a Democrat. And if not a Democrat, a Green. And if not a Green, a Libertarian. And if not a Libertarian, fine. My last choice goes to the Republican.
Right. And they do that in some of our states too. I'm pretty sure they do that in Alaska, for example. I don't know how many states, maybe somebody knows that, but yeah, I think that that's a great way to vote. I just, we have this party now that is just so malignant that we don't really have the luxury. Maybe we do, maybe it's just me, but we don't have the luxury of supporting a third party in this election because
I got
of
you.
how
Yeah, no, I totally
malignant the
agree.
choice is on the right. And so they kind of have us where they want us a little bit because we have to go for the lesser of two evils, basically. Now, I'm not calling her evil, Harris. I'm not, I think she's a good person, and but she does represent a portion of the system that is, I don't view as good for the people overall. And I think, we on the so-called left are kind of stuck voting for her in this election. And I supported Bernie, as you said. I voted for Bernie in both the previous elections, but of course Bernie is really old now and never going to run again. So I love Bernie. He's about as progressive, I guess, as they get in terms of our politicians. I don't know if would be considered progressive in terms of progressives in the population, but for a politician, he is.
Well, everyone's asking when I'm going to Q&A. It's probably a good time because I've gone way over time. I usually try for an hour and a half, but this was a really good conversation. So
I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I always enjoy talking to you, BDM. I really do. It's always a good time. The first question is from Andrew Cumming. What is the best ice cream flavor?
Hi, Andrew. Good to see you. So my favorite ice cream flavor, I guess, would be mint chip.
Mint chip. Mint chocolate chip?
Yeah.
Okay. I would just say chocolate, like double chocolate, triple chocolate, quadruple, any amount of chocolate. I really like chocolate.
I'm a chocoholic. So
right.
I always have a supply of chocolate in my kitchen. In fact, I order chocolate. I have an issue with chocolate.
No worries at all. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I really
it's almost like a drug. I mean, it does have some drug-like properties, I think. There are some alkaloids in chocolate that I don't know that you can get. Of course, you can get addicted to sugar, I think, but there's something about chocolate. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would never take a drug, he says as he chugs coffee.
Coffee is a more powerful drug than people give it credit for.
That is true. But
it's an upper. Really let's face it. It's an upper.
The next question is from Sumami. Do you have any kitty cats, BDM?
Hi, Tsunami. Good to see you. Yes, I do. I have a Siamese rescue cat, and her name is Snowy, and she's wonderful. And a shout out to Tsunami's cats, which I believe one is named Butterbean, I think, but she's got two cats that she posts beautiful photos of on her page. So thank you for the question.
Next question is Butterbean is such an awesome name too. Next question is Andrew Cummings striking again. BBM, how does it feel to have Kent Hovind as your biggest fan?
Yeah, I mean, Kent Hovind kind of used to love the creationist crybaby character. and he would always
He
smile.
has a mask of it. Yeah.
He has a
Yeah.
mask of it, and whenever it would come up on Don, of course, Donnie would always put Creationist Crybaby questions on there. But when Ken Hovind found out that Creationist Crybaby was me, all of a sudden his tone changed somewhat, and he got a little
Okay.
bit more angry and surly about it.
Oh no.
And it doesn't quite, it does. It's not quite as lighthearted anymore with him
Oh
and
dear.
Creationist Crybaby, but
You're gonna have to make up another one. If the
I've
chat wants to
I've
make
made up a
suggestions,
bunch. Yeah, you can make
well,
suggestions, but
send me suggestions in the chat to Big Bad Mama's
thanks.
next alter ego.
Good to see you, Andrew.
Next one is from Robin Webster. Can Big Bad Mama play the kazoo? And you spelled kazoo wrong. It's spelled with a K, not a C, Robin. That's it. Can you play the kazoo?
Okay, give me 1 second.
You can play the kazoo.
Okay, can you hear that?
I can, yes. Everyone can. That is...
You recognize that?
I know it's a Beatles track.
Okay, that's good enough.
What would you do if we sang out of tune? I don't know the name of the song, though. I can't remember the song.
With a little help from my friends.
With a little, yeah. The weird thing is I knew the lyrics.
Sorry for putting everybody through that.
Well, it's weird. I remember the lyrics. What would you do if I sang out of tune? Right. I knew the lyrics, but I couldn't remember the song. But that was good. That was really good.
Just remember, Mark, that I had a kazoo within arm's length when I had that request to play the kazoo. That tells you something about me.
That tells a lot about you, way more than I expected. Do you think you could play the kazoo of Waltzing Matilda?
I'll learn it.
The chorus.
I'll learn it for you. In fact, I'll learn, what I was planning is if we do this again, I'll learn a couple of Australian songs and I'll play them on your show. And I'll even show myself on camera and we'll play a couple songs if that's okay.
Okay. Well, I have the musical talent of a brick, right?
I'll play. You don't have to. You can just sit back and enjoy, but I'll play a couple of Australian ones. And
I guess I can sing a little, but probably, probably better. I can sing better than Kent Hovind. I'll put it that way. I'll put it that way.
How about better than Sandra Hovind?
That's a low bar. Like, seriously. Well, that's interesting. But I was thinking of doing a project, and I was thinking of doing like if you're unfamiliar with Waltzing Matilda, it's kind of an old song about stealing a sheep, which is hilarious.
Can you sing a couple bars?
Waltzing Matilda, who come a waltzing Matilda with me? And he laughed as he sat by that billabong. Who come a waltzing Matilda with me?
That's good, Mark.
There you go.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, it's just a song. It's just no. I just wanted it played on a kazoo because it's considered. It's like when I did the U.S. anthem on a kazoo. It's just hilarious, right? Because it suggests that it's just sloppy and bad, kind of. Anyway, it was just for a project I was thinking of doing.
I will learn that on the kazoo for you, just for you.
Well, just the under the shade of a coolabah tree. Just because it's so iconic Australian. So I was thinking of I was talking to Kentucky Atheist about this. I was thinking of trying to do a news reporting on absurdity. And I was going to call it the Great Emu War Report. I thought that was hilarious. And I've just been mulling it over whether I wanted to do it. So
that sounds funny. I used to
It
love that
does sound fun.
show. I used to love that show that you did on the Reddit posts. That was so
Oh,
much fun.
aimbot?
Yeah, that was so much fun.
Yeah, I
I
was
just
thinking of
like that.
starting that again.
Um,
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I always liked that, and I always thought it was hilarious. And of course, I would, I'd write in
Yeah.
answers to just kind of shock you and kind of extreme answers to get a reaction off of you.
Well, we
And I
set one
did.
up for
I
you to
did.
come in, and it flopped. It did no good.
What? Oh,
Nobody liked it, and like it didn't. It
hey, 50 people like that aimbot that I did. So hey, don't say it was nothing.
nobody liked it.
I made
The
a I
others
made
had
a com I
dozens and
made this
had
up
like
this
50,
scenario.
and nobody liked it. Okay, next to next question. Or now we get through this. It's BS Lewis. Thank you, BS. Will Big Bad Mama make a responding diss track to Jim Bob?
Ooh, that's a great idea, BS. And I did troll Jim Bob today, and he got so angry at me that he threatened to block me.
Oh,
So far I've only made kind of I've trolled, not trolled. What did you call it?
flamed.
Flamed. I flamed Jim Bob because I get basically give him my own opinions on things, but it gets him stirred up, and he gives his opinion, and of course he calls me
Mm,
all sorts of names. But I think it would be good if I did something where afterwards I came and kind of narrated a response to what he was saying. And so I think that's a
yeah.
good idea. Yes, I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, but um, I think I will do that at some point.
So, as Maya says, you're the reason why you was here. Yeah, probably, probably. But what's interesting is about
Wh-
Jim Bob is that you'll say, oh, you're being abusive and insulting people, and you'll say, oh, you should have seen what they said. This very, well, they did it, so I can too, which is very, very odd that he was abusing me because I've never called him anything besides a bigot, which he is. And yeah, I don't know why he thinks that that's acceptable. I thought he was supposed to turn the other cheek, but you know, who cares, right?
He's all about his fans, and his fans
Yeah,
are
I know.
some of the most transphobic, homophobic people I've seen on the internet.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Horrible, horrible
yeah.
people. And thank God for the other people in there, Iron Charioteer,
He's
Captive
great too.
Desk, BS,
Daisy.
and it's good that there's other atheists going in there.
Yeah, and I'm not going to debate an important issue like trans identity with someone that just wants to dog whistle and be a bigot like Jim Bob. Like
Yeah.
there is no way he just wants a platform so he can basically tout hatred. And I'm not going to allow him to do that. I'll debate him on God, I'll debate him on morality, but if he just wants a platform for bigotry, I'm not your guy. I'm not your guy.
Do
So
you think
yeah,
you'll debate him again?
sorry,
Do you think you'll debate him again?
who? Jim
Jim Bob.
Bob? I've never debated him the first time.
Oh, I thought you were on his I
No,
thought you were on his
I'm
show
usually
before.
asleep when his show is on. His show
Okay.
for me is like
Okay.
3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not getting up at 3 a.m. in the morning to talk to fucking Jim Bob. There's no way. Like, please. He's obviously up when I'm streaming, so I don't know. He can talk to me. I guess I have no idea. It's just, yeah, I refuse to talk to Jim Bob
I've got a lot of stuff out
on
of him
certain
about
things.
how he was raised, in fundamentalism, and he believes in Noah's Ark literally, of course, but he
Of
doesn't
course
want
he
to
does.
really delve into that stuff. He'd rather do the precept
Yep. Yeah, you have no basis for anything kind of thing.
angle.
It's so lame. Yeah.
And so of course it's all about his word salad. And yeah.
Oh, on Speed's Answers and Atheism. Oh,
Any
yeah.
more
Okay. No, I
questions?
got you, Reid. Yes, Atheist Junior. Will Big Bad Mama ever do YouTube debates?
Ooh, you
Good
know,
question.
I'm not sure. I have kind of real mixed feelings about it. Um,
Mhm.
And, I've thought about debating Kent Hovind about certain topics in geology, and I might
Right.
think about doing that.
Yeah, we didn't even get to the geology stuff. That's crazy.
But, I'm also of the opinion that by me debating Kent Hovind, I'm putting scientific facts and the theory of evolution against on almost an equal footing as his wacky creationism. And that part of it I don't like, because I think when you're doing debates, you're somewhat playing into the creationist hand by doing it. But I watch them, and I do debate, l- some of the Proverbs guys I've debated and had discussions with on evolution. But yeah, in terms of like actually going and debating Kent Hovind or something like that, I I might. I might.
Right. Okay. I 100% support it. If you ever need to prep, I'm your guy.
Okay.
Let me help. Maya Atkinson.
Hi,
Hi,
Maya.
Maya. Why did I stop doing it? Why did I stop doing aimbot? Okay, so there is something called an API for Reddit. It's basically when you're doing coding, an API is something that allows you to access people's subroutines. Essentially, that's the easy way. What's a good analogy? It is basically a series of instructions or a language that allows you to tie into them. So, for instance, Discord has an API. And anything you do that ties in with Discord's functionality will use that API. It's basically the set of instructions that you would use. So Discord started charging for their API, right? So they started basically charging people to use their API commands in order to access some of Reddit's functionality. So all the bots accessing Reddit's functionality would have to pay to access their content. But the thing you've got to remember is it's not really Reddit's content. All of this is provided free by their users. People post stuff. So the idea that they're basically allowing people to post on forum and then charging for an API is pretty gross, considering that they didn't actually generate any of this stuff. It was generated by the users. So as a protest, people were saying, well, let's boycott Discord. Boycott Reddit. I agreed with them. And so I joined in the boycott, and it sort of hasn't come back yet. So it was like a programmer's strike for Reddit, essentially. So, I thought it was absolutely gross what they were doing. Yeah.
Bring it back.
Bring it back. Oh, okay. I will take that under advisement. I will think about it. Yeah. I have decided, though, I'm not going to debate Otangelo. Just some of the stuff that's been said about him has been egregious at best. So I think that is probably a bad idea. So yeah, I will have to sort of get people on, though, people who we can have good debates about stuff. I think I've got a few people in mind. I've really got to get on that. But if anybody has any more questions, get them in, because we're about to end at the 2 hour 15. Geez, okay. At our hour and a half debate, which lasted over 2 hours. So yeah, there's that. I don't know why. I think if I said that the discussion will be 2 hours, it would be 3. So I think that's why I say an hour and a half. So it doesn't go to 3 hours or something. Because we didn't even get into all your geology and things like that, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have got into my personal interests somewhat, but maybe we can save that for the next conversation.
I missed your question. What? I don't have your question. Post it again. Post it again, Deviant. I did not get it. Did you tag me? Did you tag me? Is the question.
One of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah, Deviant's fantastic. If you don't tag me, I won't see it. That's the problem. That's the problem.
It better not be about the history of Egypt, Deviant.
Yeah, no, an hour and a half is a short Gutsit Gibbon video, but Erica knows a lot more than I do, so that's completely understandable.
I'm just kidding, Deviant.
Question is, when will Big Bad Mama come to Sweden?
Oh, I want to. I want to. Let's shoot for a
It's
year.
it sounds cold. It sounds very cold. I have
Not in the
to say.
summertime, in the early fall. I think it would be wonderful. And Deviant Outcast lives there. Soot Kettle. Do you know Smeared with Soot?
Nope,
His channel, Mark? Have you heard
nope.
of that channel, Smeared with Soot? It's a he takes on Hovind in quite a few of his videos, but he's a really good guy. And
Okay.
he and Deviant are together now as significant others. So I'm really
Oh,
happy about that.
congratulations,
And they
Stephen.
both live in Sweden. Deviant
Mhm.
lives in, I think, Stockholm area, and Soot Kettle lives up in the north more. And Mr. Logo 73 lives there, another one of my favorite people.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
So I will get there at
That's
some
cool,
point.
Soot Kettle. Sorry, I was unaware. Give me 1 second, and I will go to channel.
Smeared with Soot.
It's not Soot Kettle.
Smeared with Soot, I think, has his. I think he might have a Soot Kettle channel too, but I think in terms of like some of his Hovind stuff, and he actually has some really good songs as well. So Smeared
Okay.
with Soot.
Andrew Cumming has just written, "What's your favorite creationist argument at this current moment?"
My favorite creationist argument.
Uh-huh.
Um, what would I guess what would an example be of my favorite? I don't like any creationist arguments. I mean, do you know kind of what that means, Mark?
Well, it depends on what you're saying by favorite. If you're saying their best argument, or whether the one that makes you laugh when you hear it. Favorite's a bit of a weird sort of statement to
Yeah,
put in
yeah.
there, because it can be
I mean,
anything.
I'd love to hear the Hovind stuff about the fountains of the deep breaking open and shooting rocks to crater and pepper the
Oh
moon with
yeah.
rocks, and
Oh
also
yeah.
to create the rings of Saturn and the ice canopy collapsing at the time
Ice
of the
Canopy
global
is
flood
pretty good. Yeah,
and
yeah, that's
creating the
pretty good.
north and south poles. I love those.
Yeah.
That's my answer, Andrew.
And Hillhugger, who has actually
Hill
sent
hugger.
in a super chat. Oh, I didn't do Left-Handed Jedi gave out 5 rare ships. Damn it, I missed it. I don't know who was pinged. Who was pinged? Say thank you to Left-Handed Jedi. Left-Handed Jedi, you are a star. Thank you so much.
Nice.
I do apologize. I probably saw it and just said, "Oh, I'll do that at the end," and I almost forgot, but I didn't forget. So there you go. It all worked out for the best. I don't know who got them though, and I usually do like to read them out. But you guys can figure it out. But Left-Handed Jedi, what a guy. And Hillhugger, what's your geology field of interest?
I was hydrogeology, and so groundwater issues was my emphasis
Mm,
in college. And so I took classes towards that end, and then I went into environmental geology, and I oversaw the cleanup of toxic waste contamination in soil and groundwater. Put it simply, I mean, it was more complicated than that, but um, that's most of what I did was cleaning up groundwater from toxic waste spills.
give me 1 second. Sorry, I am doing something.
But I like Hill Hugger. I like the field of plate tectonics in terms of my interest. And I think it's important to understand plate tectonics when you're discussing evolution because of biogeography. And plate tectonics explains a lot about why species are where they were in the world in terms of like their paleo environments and that kind of thing.
Did I get yours, Robin? I thought I read yours out. Your question. I definitely did.
Robin had the kazoo
Yeah,
question.
definitely had the kazoo one. I did read it out. Okay, well, yeah, and so thank you so much for coming in. I might leave it there. I'm not sure what Robin's talking about. Was it a super chat? I'm fairly sure I did get that. Yes, I did. I got, yeah, that one and that one. I definitely did. Definitely did. So if there's anything else, let me know, Robin. Always, I don't want to. Yeah. All right. Fantastic. No problem. Big Bad Mama, always a pleasure to speak to you, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again. This has been really great. I did not know you played the kazoo. I am so freaking happy to find out. I really wish there was a kazoo emoji. I'm so upset that there isn't. The best I can do is a flute. Okay, that's the best I can do. So, flutes in chat for the kazoo. That's my favorite part of this interview.
Next
know
time
how
I
many
can play
people-
the ukulele or the spoons or something like that.
Do you know how many people have come on this channel and not played the kazoo? I feel cheated now. I feel cheated retroactively. The amount of people that have not played the kazoo while I've been interviewing
Atheist
them.
Junior plays a little harmonica, I think, but
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
not on this channel. But Mark, thank you for having me. I had fun, and it's just
My
great
pleasure.
talking to you and spending time with you, because
My pleasure.
you're my friend, and I thank you for having me on.
Yeah,
and
well, I
thanks
want
to
to
everybody who's out there who asks, just thanks to everybody who's watching and asking questions.
You have had a profound effect on the community. Like, everybody sort of has seen you round. You're very, I know to creationists you ask difficult questions, but I don't think you're trolling necessarily. I think that sort of going on and challenging them is something that we all do, and that's fine. I totally get it. But I think that, you've shown a lot of support towards people. You've been there. You've asked interesting questions. You really have been a pillar of the community, and I do want to thank you. And I've enjoyed your content as well. And I'll grab that address again, actually, for you. Big Bad Mama.
Thanks, everybody. Next time I'll show myself on camera a little more.
Well, you don't have to. I know. Yeah, I know. I don't require anybody to show themselves on camera. I know that that people have problems doing it. I totally get that. Like, I totally get it. I don't. It's scary what some religious people will do, kind of thing. It's very, very scary. So I totally get
I've been
it.
threatened with some stuff.
Yeah, so it's not a problem at all. Whoa, there you go. Face reveal. There you go. But thank you so much, Big Bad Mama. Love to see you. Don't forget, everybody, be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, be kind to me. Give me a like and subscribe. I almost forgot that. But do take care, and I will see you in the next one. See you, peeps.